Welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lesia Cahoot and I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host on this show and in life, Glenn Sheridan. Every episode, we're joined by a special guest who inspires us to consider not only what we think, but how we think and how that thinking impacts our life experience. It's time to get this conscious conversation started as we ask today's guest, who do you think you are? Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? My name is Lesia, and I'm your host. And once again, as always, I'm with my co-host, Mr. Glenn Sheridan.
Good morning, good evening. Hello, everyone.
I'm not exactly sure where he is in the Zoom Square land, but he is here. And once again, we have a super special guest with us today that we have had on the books for months and months and months, even before I finished that advanced consciousness studies class that I talked about so often in this past year. But before we get started, I just also would like to say thank you, thank you, thank you. We are so incredibly grateful and humbled to be coming to you from Vancouver Island in and around Saanich, where we live, breathe, work, and play so ever gratefully on the unceded lands of the Wasanich people. So thank you. We are so eternally grateful. So as we begin today's podcast, let me just tell you a little bit about our guest today. She has facilitated over 4,800 private sessions and worked with thousands in groups. She is an experienced and committed licensed minister, New Thought practitioner, spiritual advisor, and healer. And I'm focusing on that last one because I've experienced some of her healing just by being in her presence and by doing a super amazing session with her a couple of months ago. She identifies physical, emotional, and mental problems that have been impairing her clients, helping them to discover and release unconscious obstacles, allowing them to live a free and purposeful life. She has taught certified energy healing to medical doctors. How cool is that? Her certifications include metaphysics, internal family systems, chronic healing, among others. She also has a YouTube channel called The Way of the Spiritual Path. She has held a weekly group meditation since 2008, and she loves helping people with the human longing for peace, clarity, and wellness as a part of her life's purpose. Now, this is just a teeny tiny drop in that infinite ocean of who this amazing being is. I had the joy, privilege, and absolute delight of being a classmate with her in the advanced consciousness studies class that I was in last year. And at the beginning, it was super cool because every week we'd go into breakout rooms and somehow, even though it was random, for the first, I don't know, like 5 or 6 sessions, we ended up in a breakout room together with one of our other classmates. And so it was kind of like, hey, everybody, welcome to our breakout room.
Right.
She has a unique perspective on life and living and being. It's almost like she has her own language. It's just this being is such an amazing delight and such a wonder. And I am so grateful that she is here with us today. So without further ado, so we can get this conscious conversation going, Ursula Lentine, tell us, who do you think you are?
I'm going to have to give that old-fashioned answer. A speck of stardust in the infinite reality of the cosmos. I am you, you are me. Pretty much that sums it all up.
Yeah.
Must have been Ram Dass or somebody old school that said that originally. I don't know.
And that, even just being in your presence again and hearing your laugh and seeing your face and just like experiencing your glow just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. And
I love you too, Leslie. I love you too, my darling.
So that is just this like lovey-dovey fest. I mean, you can't help but like feel that way in Ursula's presence. So, speck of stardust, God stuff, I am you, you are me, everything is interconnected, and the word that I like to use, intertwingled. It just like that's kind of what it's all about. And I feel like in my lifetime, I'm just going to go right there at the beginning of this show. in the last year and a half to 2 years of the COVID experience, where life has been turned upside down and inside out for so many around the globe, bringing opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to really look at the value and meaning of life, the value and meaning of relationships, who and what we are, who and what are we, and just like what's it all about kind of thing, and how do things fit in. If there has ever been a time of sort of really, really, really embracing the notion that everyone and everything is a reflection of me and what is going on, like in here, in my mind, in my heart, in my soul, now has been it. And I can speak for myself when I say that it has been challenging for a lot of these last 1.5 to 2 years. And being a spiritual practitioner, being, someone who's in ministerial studies, having gone through that advanced consciousness studies class last year, really continues to sort of be the anchor, I guess, even though it keeps me open and just like
Reference.
floating around in,
I would
the
call it a
internet.
reference.
Yeah, reference. That's a good
Reference.
one. To just keep remembering and coming back to this idea of, this is what's going on, but this is who and what I am.
I call it being in the eye of the hurricane. So, let the chaos ensue over there and over there and over there. I'm going to stay here in my eye of the storm, and I'm going to inner resource, and that's, just keep pushing that out so the people in my field can experience the eye, and then they can be in the eye of their life, and then I try to hang out with other people who are in the eye.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that, even in this past year, hanging out with people in the eye, um, that's a really neat expression. Something came at some point in the past year for me, this notion of hanging out with like-minded people. And I have to say, and I have mentioned it before on the podcast, that there was something about that just kind of rubbed me a little the wrong way, because I sort of like, for me, it's if you keep hanging out with like-minded people, then in a way you're not growing, because it's sort of just like recycling.
Unless you're hanging out with all proactive growth people,
Yeah, okay.
right? But no, it's true, because that's a part of the divide and conquer that's going on right now. If we just segregate with our own people, that's a part of the darkness's agenda. They're like a one-trick pony, like divide and conquer, and it works every frigging time. Just look throughout history, look throughout your families. I mean, it works. So that's what's at play right here.
Hmm.
And back to the everybody is me, I am everybody, not to segregate. Because when, did you get the shot? Yeah, you're not wearing a mask, like all of that hyper world. Like, I'm like, okay, that's not the point. The
Hmm.
point is, even if I don't agree with you, do you still love me?
Hmm.
And that's the point.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting that you say that, because I've had a tough time the last few months, and some of it had to do with what happened with the spiritual center that I'm a part of here, where I'm not able to attend anymore because I don't have a vaccine passport that I can show. Even if I did, I still wouldn't go, because I don't believe in the segregation of, if you have your papers, if you did this one thing, then you get to go and partake. But if you didn't, well, then you don't. And part of it for me is that here in our province, even with the mandates in place, places of worship don't fall under the mandate. However, circumstances are such that my spiritual center has embraced that mandate. And so it was really, really challenging for me to come to terms with why, when this seems like an amazing opportunity to like step above and sort of go, hey, there are other ways to look at this. There are other ways to navigate this. There are other ways to sort of just, yeah, navigate the stuff that is this coming up, whether it's in the media, the government, the mandates, the opinions, the judgments, the criticisms. especially being steeped in a philosophy that teaches people how to think, how to use their critical thinking skills, how to tune into intuitive, inner wisdom and guidance rather than fear, 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 do this because this is the only way that we're going to get through this. And so that's something that I like, even as I talk about this, I can feel my heart getting a little bit, tense. But that being said, when I was in a prayer session with one of my prayer partners about a month ago, then she reminded me of part of the mission statement that Global Truth Center Los Angeles and Global Truth Center Toronto and I think maybe Unity Tucson have, among others, which is to love only, forgive everything, remember who you are. And the remember who you are part, she said, and remember who they are. And for me, it was like, oh, yes, that's the part that I kind of needed to be reminded of, because it's not just about like me kind of thing. But if we are indeed all reflections of each other, and we are all interconnected, and we are all that one amazing, beautiful, infinite, energetic flow that is the essence of everyone and everything, then yes, I also need to remember not only who I am, but who and what everyone else is, that we are all the same, that we are all love, light, beauty, whatever you want to call it, spirit, source, God, energy, universe, tra la la. So that was a big reminder for me. And that's one that I keep needing to sort of reference, if you will, because it can be, it's been challenging to sort of
Yeah, same,
forget.
same. They're
Right.
like, "Oh, you're not vaccinated, then you can't be on the podium and you can't speak." Like, really? That's not our teaching. And they're
Mhm.
like, "Well, that's how it is." And I'm like, "Okay, bye, out."
Mhm.
And then I was like, "These are my people. Like, these are my people." Right? So
Mhm.
I had to, like you, process. Like, what up? I'm just gonna write them a letter. And I'm gonna explain to them. And I'm like, no, no, that's ego. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna be mad at them. And I'm like, well, that's not gonna help either. And I'm like, oh, okay, like, I'm gonna sort of avoid them. And I'm like, go ahead. And then that doesn't do anything either, right?
Yeah.
So then it took me a few weeks of just being okay with it, not being okay with it, just letting it go, being disappointed, and just moving through the waves of human emotion and my ego, and being with me and my ego, and just saying, okay, okay, okay. Then they called the other day and they're like, hey, we're honoring all our practitioners and ministers and everything. Do you want to come in? And I'm like, I'm gonna have to wear a mask. People are gonna look at me, but it's a celebration, and I agree with celebrations. So I'm gonna show up, and
Mhm.
I'm just gonna be who I typically am, who I know myself to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to be loving and kind. I'm going to ask, as I always do, are you hugging today? Because a
Mhm.
lot of people are like, oh, like, okay, I'm not sick, you're not sick. Why are we afraid?
Yeah.
Oh, they're winning. The darkness is winning. So I'm just going to walk fearlessly and be in compassion with myself and my emotional journey of being kicked out of my community, my tribe,
Mhm.
and just being okay with it. Because when it first happened, I was like, these are my people. And then I'm like, well, everybody's your people.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then maybe you don't have to be just stuck with this little group here. You belong to the Jewish people. You belong to these people. You belong to that people. You belong to the nature, the people who love nature. Like, you belong to everybody. You don't have to identify, that's ego, with just this community. So I feel like I kind of opened up. And the doctorate that we got, you and I both got.
You got a doctorate. I got a bachelor's.
Okay, the certification that we both got is outside of that teaching.
Mhm.
Mine, Centers for Spiritual Living.
Mhm.
So they aren't even going to be like, yay. They'll be like, oh, that's nice. Right? So I'm like, you already, are beyond that. That's
Yeah.
your home group, but then you have a bigger, group of individuals and teachings and so on and so forth. And I'm studying with a lady in California. She talks about seventh dimension stuff, right?
Okay.
So she doesn't belong to anybody or anything. So that helps me unidentify, which is ego based,
Yeah.
with a sense of belonging, or I'm a minister with, or any of that title stuff. So that's been very helpful as well.
I there's so much in there to sort of unpack. And I really like the identification and ego-based stuff. But the one thing that I do want to say for me, and I guess this maybe is a little, ego stuff, is the last talk that I did, the last Sunday talk that I did at the Center for Spiritual Living Victoria here, it was a week before the mandates came into play, and even that week before, when I was doing the talk, which was fantastic, it was just a few days before. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? And then I got inspired by a little John Fluvog shoe bag, because I don't know if you know John Fluvog shoes, but they're my favorite shoes. I have 4 pairs of them, and they're just funky, artistic, super beautifully crafted. And he has a whole message of love, around his culture, and started in BC, and now he's all over the world. But anyway, so I was looking at my little bag, and there's this beautiful, beautiful saying on there that he has. And that's what inspired my talk. And so I called the talk "Please Wear My Shoes," because that was the last line in the bag, on the bag, and tied it into a Faith Rivera song that the guest musician had sung that day. And then also sort of, without overtly talking about COVID, was just sort of like, what kind of reality are we creating based on what we're thinking, and what is our responsibility, where, like, in the reality that we're experiencing, kind of thing. And at the very beginning of the talk, I mentioned I just received my bachelor's degree in advanced consciousness studies. And it was so amazing to hear the clapter, like the clapping of people in the audience, like, just, not on little Zoom squares or whatever, but in the room. It was amazing. Everybody was so happy and delighted, and congratulations. And the talk went really, really well. And I was so excited. And I thought, okay, next time I can go a little bit deeper. And then that was it. And I had no idea that that was going to be my last
Rah, yeah.
until, but like, I don't know. I mean, like who knows what, how things are going to unfold or whatever for now. But at least I got to, have that little sort of like congratulations and way to go, in getting that degree. Because for me, this was my very first degree ever. Like, I'm
Yeah.
53 years old, and it's my very first degree. I have so many certificates and diplomas, and then things that I've taken throughout my lifetime that I've been interested in. But this, like, an actual degree, was like,
I know, because when I went off on my, like, even at 18, I'm like, I am unconventional. There's no way I can do the standard everything. Like, I can't, sorry. And my mom, she's always like, honey, you could have been a doctor. You could have been a doctor. I'm like, I am a doctor, Mom. I heal people. And I don't have a piece of paper, but my world is healing. I help people. I'm just like a doctor. It's just a different kind of doctor.
yeah,
He's like, yeah, yeah, honey, you're a doctor. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then, like, no degree, right? Like, no formal education, nothing. Worked hard and got, like, every little niche that I go all the way to the top, over CE units, like everything, right?
yeah,
When I was in real estate, even, I got the broker's license, and I was on the board of the, Atlanta Board of Realtor. Like, I'll take it all the way to the top. But in the academic world, they'll be like, you're nobody, right?
yeah,
Not that I talk to academics, but who cares, right? So then when I want to call him professor, when Professor James Mellon is like, he's like, well, let's see. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And he's like, well, tell me everything. I wrote it all down. And I'm like, oh, it's quite impressive here. I sent it off, and he's like, oh, you're qualified for a doctorate. I'm like, what? I
wow,
think you made a mistake. He's like, no, no, I'm not. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I had been working on a book in the background too, So then I'm like, oh, I'll pull that book back to life and
yep,
finish that finally.
yep,
And then moving into the world of books, like, so many people think about writing a book. So many people start writing a book.
yep,
Only this many people finish writing a book. Only this many people. like it's like the 0.00, and we're getting into that. So the accomplishment that you and I have made is very outstanding,
Yeah.
for the opportunities, right? When we found it and we just went this way and that and followed the breadcrumb trail and achieved something quite incredible.
Yeah.
Also, I have a funny story, right? So then I'm like, whatever. And even when I was ordained, I didn't have a big celebration here because I wasn't associated with a church at that time. Because I have a focus ministry. I don't want to have my own church. I,
Hmm.
I never did. That's why you always did the youth ministry, because I thought the most helpful thing I can do is teach children about spirituality so they don't have to get all messed up later and then they have to come to see me to do all the healing work.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
let me catch them in the beginning and set them up with a good set of tools. So then I have another minister. He's a part of the community, but not like a full, stamp, this is all who I am, because he's transferred different teachings and he's landed here. And he lost his partner recently, and I said, hey, I'd love to come and just do a healing on you. I know it's been very hard. And we did a wonderful healing, and he finished the healing, and he's like, hey, do you want to speak at my center? I've got this date. And I'm like, yeah, that's great, because it was like a hug in a way.
Yeah.
And then I get there, and a colleague that I've known for years, he's like, Emerson Institute, Emerson Institute. And I'm like, is that the same Emerson? And I'm like, yeah, I think it is. And then he's like, yeah, we have a graduation for all the people. And I'm like, I just graduated. I just got a doctorate. And he's like, well, come on. And I'm like, great. So all of a sudden, we're going to have like this big celebration with me and the other people who have had different graduations,
Yeah.
and they're in the Emerson Institute. And I'm like, this is amazing. Only spirit works that way.
That's awesome. Is that part of because I saw something, I think it was through the Association for Global New Thought or something. That there was going to be this graduation. And I was thinking, well, I just got a degree. I should be there. I should be a part of it. But this is
Come
happening in person, isn't it? Or is it happening
in
online?
person in
Okay.
Atlanta.
Yeah, I can't fly over the border.
Oh,
I think I think we can only like row boats or something
yeah, how
from this position.
like the Mexicans do. Can you run in the an underground with a flashlight and swim across the creek? Can you do any of that?
Yeah. Well, it's
It
getting limited, but it's we're gonna have to think our way out of it and feel our way out of it. That's not. I'm not. When Lesia works for a chiropractor who does best work. What is it? Last bio.
bioenergetic synchronization technique.
Okay, so there's a lot of you know. Basically, it's getting your mind and your body harmonized. I think that's the way I feel it. So the um, the treatment was very quick because I'm like physically I feel pretty good and a few complaints. So she was able to kind of line them up and because it basically she's kind of moving my feet at the bottom of the table. It's like
Hmm.
um, sometimes they lock up if there's some feeling or
Defense
there's some
physiology.
what is it?
Defense physiology.
Yeah. So in this case, it was just it was fine. So it was like two things rather than maybe I would do five if I'm struggling with something or if my body's um, feeling some discomfort or pain or whatever. But just at the end, she's asking, "Hey, so is that it? Is there anything else?" And then this whole thing about um, the current situation where the federal government said you can't fly or take, rail unless you have a passport. And so I was thinking, and then we have our own individual provincial limitations as well. But like, for example, we can take a ferry across to the mainland and that kind of thing. But I was just thinking, the thought on the table was like, oh, I wonder this when I'm thinking about these things or looking on the internet or listening to other people talking about restrictions of movement in Australia or here or whatever, the States. various states. Is my body reacting, and like how does that work? Like, so I was just saying, I didn't want to continue the session with her necessarily. I just sort of said it out loud, and she's like, "Well, let's see," And then she just like, "Oh yeah," and my legs, like my feet had locked up again. I was like, "What?" They were just flopping all over the place, and then I start discussing this thing about what might be happening. It's not even if I was focusing on like being angry at the prime minister or something,
Right.
and it just like went like, okay, all right, I guess I got some more work to do, and it's just it's another good reminder of just like I am always doing that expecting and anticipating thing if I am talking about it, dwelling on it, put my attention on it, because I'm in that energy of of whatever that is. In this case, it happens to be a combination of what would you say? It's like uncertainty, as well as a bit of anger, and a bit of like um, just feeling put upon or something. Like what? Why do they do this to people? And then of course, then you're in the division, as you say about the darkness. It's like it just like it envelops you quickly, and you have to go, yeah, but that isn't me, that thing I'm talking about or thinking about or feeling even isn't me. So yeah, I just wanted to add that because it's like,
No, that's very rich. It's super, super rich because I've been avoiding like going to the doctors and everything like that. And I was brushing my teeth and I'm like, oh my God, I have a cavity. Like, oh, now I have to go back. So I went to the dentist and I don't like my trust level for all authority has diminished. I've always been suspicious, like, are you, but it's my Sicilian nature. We're probably mafia in the blood, I'm quite sure. And and so lately I've been like, okay, 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 who's who can I trust? And then, like they're all me, blah blah blah. Okay, so then I called around, I found a dentist who's more holistic in their approach like us. So I went and I said, aren't teeth related to different emotions? And she's like, here's the chart. I don't have emotions on here, but I have organs and I have, different strains of different things. So each tooth is related to, another part of our body or functions of our body. So she said, you can find it at home, look it up when you get there. And I haven't had a cavity in forever and ever. But I was like, okay, I looked it up and it said grief and sadness. And she's like, oh, look, you have a little cavity on this side starting on the exact same tooth on the other side. I'm like, oh my God. So it said grief and sadness. And I'm like, okay, I'm dealing with a friend who is dying and I'm signing off on her. She's doesn't have family and all of that. So I'm her person. And I'm like, that's only been the last 6 weeks. I don't think cavity comes in the last 6 weeks. And no one else is dying per se. But I said, oh, it's the collective consciousness. I am heartbroken about what's happening here because our freedoms are being systematically taken away. And, I feel like we've been put to sleep systematically here in America specifically with our diet and, commercialism and consumerism and education. I feel like we've been, ignorant, fat, and lazy has been promoted
mhm.
and that puts us to sleep. So if you're fighting, down to the Malcolmania way of life, if you're fighting, if you disable your opponent, you don't have to fight.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've been disabled
It is it that
mentally and emotionally.
the other part of, and you say it's been taken away, but it's also we're giving it away.
So hand
So
here, here,
you know,
here, here, here,
is
because
it?
parents, right? You trust your parents.
Mhm.
So if people jump into that role
Yeah.
and they say, "Oh, I'm giving you something. I'm giving you something." We become like babies, like, "Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, oh."
Yeah. It's oh boy, where do we start here? I am just. It is a bit like we talked about this a few podcasts ago about the idea of the call, like the hero's journey thing, answering the call. It's that stage of just, look, man, um, you're not actually meant for what you're doing when you're sitting, just walking in a circle, doing the regular things, and feeling comfortable with that. Because that's like an image that you've latched onto as being real, like the Plato's cave thing. It's like it's a shadow on a wall from a light, but you want to actually get out there and see what the light feels like when you interact with it, and you meet other people who are doing the same kinds of things from a totally different perspective. And this thing of on a globe, I'm going to say global, but obviously there's parts of the world where they're like, yeah, we don't do that shit. We don't need that. We have our own ways of handling it. I don't know what you're talking about. It could even be that deep, right? But at least we know, like our Western, will say, and modern industrialized based societies, which even includes China, things like that, are so focused on that consciousness level of you say, of being infantilized and having someone else, handle all of these things so that we can be protected from these bad feelings or experiences. And it's like, yeah, but that's not actually life. That's a passive, that's giving your soul away so that you're 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 just a shell walking through life, and you're not feeling anything. You're not interacting with life as it is. And you know so for example, I mentioned at the beginning the magical grove that you live in behind you. There are people who will be content to be on screen all the time and have something behind them like that, or whatever they're into, and they have no desire to actually go and experience what's like what being in nature is like, or wondering about like trees, or insects and birds, whatever. So I think I think overall it's like a fork in the road of asking, like, is this a blessing or is this a curse? If it's both, which one do I choose to
News.
focus my attention on? Because if we just get riled up and with the ego stuff of like, oh, this curse, like, I can't believe this year, like, and as if it's like predestined, oh, this was going to happen, and it's like, and then you get into the astrology thing. It's like, which I'm sure some people it really works for them, but for me, it is again too passive. You know, if you're actually interacting with, let's say the gods that are represented in the stars that are influencing you, that even that is more, um, that's more engaged and engaging, right? Than just like waiting to see what happens next and reading your horoscope kind of thing. Which is all, it's not the way to go. So I'm just saying, I really, I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing to be mindful to the extent that I can say at any moment, um, I'm going to choose what, I'm going to select what my moment is like, my day is like, and to be thankful, to be grateful to be in company like this, to have a beautiful set of relationships, to be in a beautiful part of the world, and the earth's sky, and the sun's doing its thing today, the sun solar flares thing. It's all part of it, and if there are storms, human beings are meant to get through storms, and sometimes together, sometimes alone. But I think back to that call thing is like, do you want to answer the call or not? And if you don't, that's fine, but don't be surprised if you if at some point you just sort of get locked into this self-hatred kind of thing of like I just don't know what to do with myself, or I don't know who I am, because you had the choice, and you do have that choice at any moment. Just walk away and go, see you guys later. I'm going to see what's over there.
That was a lot.
I know.
Beautiful. That was beautiful, Glenn.
It was a
Thank you.
rambly. Sorry.
No,
No, no
not at all.
rambling.
No rambling.
Uh-uh.
No, all
No.
significant.
Yeah,
Totally significant.
I even when you said, about the reading of the horoscope, I mean, like I don't read the Chinese, astrology stuff as much as I used to, but I have to say I really enjoy it because for me, it's just sort of another opportunity to choose or to decide, like you don't have to blindly accept, what is sort of like written or fated or whatever. It's like, I'm year the monkey, and if this year says that it's going to be a tough year financially, well, okay, then let me be more aware of, what it's going to take for me to weather the storm, the financial storm of this year that, may or may not happen. But that to me is just, it's more awareness, and it's another opportunity to just step into, answering that call or whatever. So I think, it's like I just finished 4 weeks of running 2 concurrent eat well be well 4 week challenges, and it wasn't so much about don't eat this, drink this much water, look at your calories, macros, micros, whatever. It was really about expanding awareness and deepening understanding of how to nourish our mind, body, and soul. That's what it was. And it was incredible. And the simple act of just becoming more aware of
Hmm.
what you eat, when you eat, why you eat, how you're
Why?
feeling.
Especially why? Why is a whole, an entire, like, of
But it
course.
was about the
Yes.
awareness,
Yes.
and that in just 4 weeks, it was just incredible for me to like sit by and champion, these two groups of people who decided to commit, to themselves for these 4 weeks. And just the simplest little things, the simplest changes in behavior, or, something as simple as journaling, or whatever, way they sort of documented and explored and investigated. It was just amazing and so much fun for me to just see where they were, at the end of the 4 weeks, as compared to how they started. And it really was all about awareness, and that awareness deepened their understanding, which then impacted their choices that they're making all the time, even if they're not aware that they're making the choices. And so I think that's just, Honey Bunch, when you were talking about that, it was just, it's so important. Um, to remember that we're always, even when we're not aware, we're always, always, always choosing. And just like a couple of nights ago, when we were talking about the open letter that the RCMP wrote, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police wrote a few days ago to their leader, I can't remember what her actual title is, to say that we do not stand, with the mandates. We do not support them, and talked
Yes.
about the law, and
Right.
where is the law in all of
The
this,
original, the
kind of
original
narrative.
laws of when, like in America, there's a side conversation going on around. Remember the Constitution. Remember the
Yeah,
Constitution. So we're going backwards in time because this is a lockdown situation here, and that's not what America stands for. And I belong to a community in Buckhead, which is like a fancy part of Atlanta, and they had some speakers come through. 7 o'clock in the morning, we all gathered and to, a live presentation, and they were Navy officials,
yeah,
super high level. Like I couldn't even wrap my head around everything they've done in their lifetime. Like just, and there's four of them, and then there was a guy who made a game, like he was a gamer guy. I don't know all the games, but everyone was like, oh, and I was like, oh, that must be a video game. But he also understands strategy the way that these Navy officials did.
right.
So I listen very intently because those gentlemen are coming from in a completely different world than I live in.
Yeah,
So I find it fascinating how they think, what they are saying, how they're answering the question. So I'm on like hyper aware, studying every little thing. And they weren't saying anything that I don't think. So I was like, these guys agree. with the way I think.
Yeah.
And I could tell they wouldn't say it in my words and they wouldn't exactly say it out loud, but I have a way of listening that I can listen, what's being said and what's not being said.
Yeah.
And then the choices, like Glenn was saying about, making choices. And then I was like, yes, 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 yes. I was so excited. And I asked a question. I said, look, because they jumped over, they completely leaped over the topic of COVID
Yeah.
and the control issues going on. And I said so the conversation was about China and how China is winning the AI war and they're taking over. And whoever controls information, as we know, that's an old quote, like you control information, you control everything.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever controls information. And then so I said, look, I come from a quantum world, metaphysics, spiritual and energetic references. And, I do healing work and all of that. So they were like, okay. And I said it out loud. I said, hey, that's it. And I said, so China is a bully, a copycat, and single focused. And American people, we're the ones who fought for our country. We're innovators, we're creative, and we're free. So, what's your strategy based on those two profiles? And how are we going to wake up the American people? That was my question to the Navy guys.
Wow.
I know. And
And
the general leaped up from his position at the head podium and he put his arms around the Navy guys and he goes, "Don't we love these kinds of questions, guys?" And I'm like, is he playing fun of me? Or is he, is he playing, or does he really like agree? And then later he said, after I went to introduce myself, he goes, "No, I really appreciate the way you're thinking, where you're coming from." And I was
yeah.
like, okay. So it's like we're the weirdos
Mm-hmm.
in the community, but they're high level. So I don't mind being a weirdo because I've already been outside the box my whole life.
Yeah.
So, but when I bring my weirdo-ness out and somebody at a high level agrees, I'm like, yes, because it's like I knew I was onto something. And like
Yep.
Glenn was saying, inner resourcing and like figuring things out for ourselves, choice by choice, and wondering like, okay, is this okay? Is this not okay? And making the choice to answer the call and then getting validated at a moment like that. And the one guy said, "Oh, don't worry. There is a wake up call coming. There
Mm-hmm.
is. It's coming." So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, 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 okay. And then I talked to my way outside the box people, and they're like, yeah, I was listening to some channeled messages, and they're all saying, November is going to be a big month, and there's going to be like a world reveal. And I'm like, it's just going to be the corruption of the leadership of the world organizations, and we're finally, that boil is going to pop, and everybody's going to see how ugly it is.
Oh my God, what
And
an image.
and I also have a theory or an understanding that darkness will eventually self-destruct. So if you look at any kids trying to lie, right? Like it's not going to go well. It will blow up in your face, or stealing or
Yeah.
cheating or anything. Eventually it comes out.
Okay,
So I feel like it's the world's ugliness is coming out.
so I'm just going to quickly jump in, and then Lassie can take it from there. A
Maybe.
couple of things. I agree with what you said at the beginning of the question. The way you framed it was about China being a bully. I would tweak that a little bit and say it's the Chinese Communist Party,
Yes.
right? It's not the people.
No, it's the voice of the country.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the people are lovely, but the way that their government and their leaders are
Right.
behaving, they've got into this niche of, like as you said, around the technology thing, where there's a lot of stealing patents going on, and like they've got people in different institutions and government levels that clearly well paid. Um, but that's really cool the way you interacted in that way. That was very impressive. I can't, the other thing, I can't wait to listen to this podcast because I need to listen to what you just said a couple of times just to like, this is great. Anyway, the thing that just, as you were talking, reminded me of Jonathan Haidt, who wrote a book called The Righteous Mind, and then Happiness Hypothesis, and then the last one was the coddling of the American mind about children, not being exposed enough challenging kind of situations, so they're just not living their best life because they're being like the helicopter parent thing, they're
They
just
don't get to develop
yeah, the
or
they
mature.
prepare they're doing the opposite thing. Instead of preparing the child for the road, they're preparing the road for the child. Anyway, one of his things that I just read a thing the other day about his three principles of moral psychology, and there were four, and he combined the first two into one. And as you're talking, what it reminded me of. He said, this is from a blog post actually called The Independent Whig, WHIG.com. And he's saying, I'll just read the note part. It says, note, uh, Jonathan Haidt originally posited four principles. He has since reduced the number to three by combining the first two. His three principles are described in the three sections of his book, The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. They are: one, intuition comes first, strategic reasoning second. And that's what clicked when you were talking about these Navy SEAL guys and whatever. So, intuition first, strategic reasoning second. And then two, there's more to morality than care and fairness. And that's, you can go deep into that. And three, morality binds and blinds. So this is this thing where we're getting into this equating goodness with following orders kind of thing.
Right, right.
That's where we're at this kind of set of, like, if you were a general watching a battle unfolding, you would know what kinds of attacks and what strategies and outflanking and, like, you know hiding your numbers and this kind of stuff. And this thing of governments doing the thing of, like, convincing people who each are agreeing in some level that, look, we all know you're good people. You're a good person. And the way that you can best show that to other people is by doing these things that are so simple that, and then you get into the weeds of the story of, does Kate want to make some sort of sense? And yeah, of course I want to help other people. I don't want to hurt people. Of course I'll start talking like this, and I'll do the socialist distancing thing or whatever it is, and the 6 meter or 6 feet apart, and at a certain point you forget, like, sorry, what is this all based on again? What was the original problem? And now we're into the booster stage, and now we're even more. This is what I was working through yesterday in my mind and body was, um, the medicalizing children aspect, both from what's happening now since March of 2020, but also in um, the the gender issue, and children deciding that they're in the wrong body, and then, oh, it just so happens we have chemicals and hormone blockers that will help alleviate, you know and then the parents in that situation get into this of, well, of course I want to help my children. I don't want my children to feel pain or distressed or discomfort, or like, um, why would I do that? So of course I'm going to follow this road that assists my child, forgetting that, look, we're in very new territory here, and as much as you want to support your children, um, they're going to lose some things down the road if you do this. If you allow your child to make a decision and allow the school to reinforce it, and sometimes even without the parent being in the loop, and you're the child is going to be hurt in certain ways that you haven't imagined yet.
Yeah.
You can't even bring yourself to deal with that pain and that potential destruction of that child as they grow and realize they maybe made a mistake based on peer pressure, you know, especially with girls right now. There's such an epidemic of girls, young girls who want to fit in. And with social media being a huge part of society now for children, as they're being socialized online instead of in person, they're they're and again, I still don't know what to do with all this, you know. I have children, and two of them are daughters, and I just think if I was doing that right now, and I had say an 11 or 12-year old who's just decided, look, you know, this is what's going to happen. This is who I am now. And the media is supporting it, and commercials, like the last thing was this week was Twix commercials that were um, focusing on the gender thing and Halloween thing. And I just thought, like, what would you do in that position? Like, I'm asking myself, would I honestly think what I think now and feel what I feel now, or would I just like go? No, I would go with this feeling of, yeah, I guess I have to protect my child by doing this thing that I'm being told is good for my child. But like the other situation, you know, let's protect our children by, you know, if they're between 5 and 11, um, let's introduce something into their body that is protecting everyone. And I just think I don't know what I would do if I was in that situation.
Well, we don't know what to do because that's a good way to take like the confusion out of this situation and say, look, let's look at this situation that's similar with the children
Hmm.
and look at the complexity there, and then take that ability to observe and go back to us and say, look what we're doing with this other stuff. None of it makes any sense. And then take another person from 100 years ago and say, look, this is what's happening right now. They'll be like, no, 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 not good, not okay, not okay. And then take another person from 100 years from now saying, this is where it all started. This is where we were used to living like this for thousands of years, and we got some crackpots in front of the microphone telling us, to do this. And everyone's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Because again, we've been systematically programmed to be passive, like you said, to be compliant, to be cooperative. It's so easy to manipulate, oh, you'll be a good person, good girl, good boy. Okay, Pavlov's dog. We're going backwards in way time. But again, take the caveman and say, look, we're doing all these shots. Like you said, the communities are like, nah, we don't need any of that. I don't even know what you're talking about. Those people are living close to the earth.
Yeah.
So who can we be? Back to that identity piece, like which eyes am I going to observe from? Which ears am I going to listen from?
Yeah.
And the confusion that we're all in, again, back to a war strategy. Confuse your opponent, because that locks them down. So we're all confused, again, on purpose. So we have to kind of dig through the weeds and, like, hey, is any of this making sense to you? Across the pond, right? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And the desocialization of that specific age group, the teenage group, I know because I'm a youth minister. It's in our human biological need, not want, not preference, to socialize when we're in that 12 to 18 time bracket with other children. It's necessary for their development and their identity and their consciousness, and to talk about feelings and things that they're experiencing that no one else in any other age group can identify with. So when that's being stripped away, that development again is not happening. So again, if you want to look at strategy, take a whole generation and smooth everything out. Take away their personality, take away their fight, their drive, their sexuality, their preference, take all of that away. And now you have a wonderful 10-year gap of people who are going to listen and do everything you say because they have nothing to stand for, they have no identity, they don't know who they are, and now you have a blank slate and you can program with whatever you want. It's that easy. History gets lost in 3 generations because no one's telling the story anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know.
That,
And in
that's.
the face of that, oh, I'm having a lovely day. I'm talking to great people. I have a roof over my head. There's sun outside, and back in the day, because when I look historically of who we were as people before everything that I know today, when we were nomadic, when we were just a tribe following the food,
Hmm.
when there were the tigers, not only just tigers, saber-toothed tigers, it's always that one. They had their fears of survival. So I feel like the human story is about survival. And how can we as spiritual beings turn that into thrivability?
Yeah.
But, we've always been afraid for our lives and for our loved ones. And, what am I doing here? And is this right? I think for our whole existence, we've wondered, is this going to be okay? Am I okay now? Is it? And I wonder which generation said, "Oh, this is a great time in history to bring a baby into this world." Because you hear that, time and time again, like, "No, I'm not going to have kids. I'm not going to bring a kid into the world." I'm like, "No, it's okay. If you have love in your heart, please bring that child in.
Mhm.
The world's going to
Yeah.
go on, or do what it does." It's just amazing when we have this depth of a conversation to say, "Okay, then, what's the solution?" I get the problem. What's the damn solution?
Yeah.
Somebody. And then it's like you have to come up with your own solution for the day.
Yeah.
And back to Glenn's word choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Lasia, do you have something? I would go all day. So just.
There, yeah, no, I mean, I'm really enjoying listening to, what you guys are talking about and just the way the conversation is unfolding. And it does keep coming back to choice and choosing for me as well, like everything that I'm hearing. And about half an hour ago or whenever it was, when I was starting to say a couple of nights ago when we were talking about that open RCMP letter, I just really felt like this is what we focus on. This is what we decide and choose to focus on, because it's easy to focus on all of the crap and the fear and the worry and the anxiety. There's enough of that being dished out all over the place. And so, there's no real, like, I don't have to like think to, choose that. It's just being served up all the time. But to go and shift away from that and just go, no, like this is the thing, like the rally that we went to before the election happened here in Canada. And even though we got there late towards the end of it and there were very few people left, there were thousands there before we got there, just, coming together and questioning and talking and hanging out and supporting each other, and drivers, honking as they passed by, kind of thing, and information and education being handed out about vaccination, as well. But that's it. It's like I choose to focus on, and sometimes it's challenging and I'll get sucked back into, like what the drama, but I choose to focus on knowing that like Ursula said so eloquently, the boil is going to pop. That, like the truth is out. It, like, it's coming out, like there are cracks in the foundation of this one narrative, of this one way to, deal with, whether it's, well, COVID. That's not the only way, and even so, what if people, that think otherwise, or think, beyond the mainstream, if that's the minority, isn't that part of the, sort of the crux of, well, maybe we should be listening then, like, because there are enough people, no matter how small, that percentage is, that are saying, screaming, like whatever, saying, hey, there's another way, there are other things to listen to. um isn't that part of it? Like, is it always about numbers, like the majority says this, so we're just going to go along with this no matter what? No, there's another way to look at it. There was a thing that I saw on Facebook, a post that someone put up that said, the truth doesn't mind being questioned. The a lot, well, I just lost it. The truth doesn't mind being challenged. a lie doesn't like being doesn't want to be questioned or something like that. And
That's
that, I was
rich.
like, that was great. That was fantastic because
That's
how many
rich.
times, you know, and it's, I don't feel myself getting all riled up in this moment. I could a few hours from now or tomorrow. But when someone says, you know, if you're not vaccinated, it's like you're driving drunk, you know, or you're like holding a rifle blindfolded and just waving it at the crowd kind of thing. Like, how could you be so selfish and irresponsible as to put your life and your health and well-being above mine, above, you know, the rest of society? How can you not just go and do your civic duty? And I'll be honest, sometimes I don't even know how to, I don't know how to respond to those things. So I just think I don't know how to respond, and I'm okay with that because ultimately I am okay with my choices. I am, you know, this it's if this were if there were enough science and whatever that, you know, sort of like prove to me, well, okay, fine, but intuitively there
Yes.
is something that is saying no, this is
That's
not
why I got on this
okay.
track, is because something inside of me said it's this isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what's not right? And it's like, this isn't right. I'm like, it doesn't feel right. And then that's why that intuition told me, look, just listen, slow
Mm-hmm.
down. And then my logical brain is like, that doesn't make sense. Well, that doesn't. Well, how could they say that? And then everybody, well, wait a minute. And then I was like, I'm not okay with this, right? Because the more it was controversial inside of me and the louder and the more, you know, it was prevalent. I was like, I'm like, I'm in a scary movie right now. Like, and I'm like, are you paying any attention? And then I'd find someone like, yeah, this doesn't make sense. And I'd be like, okay. And that's why we're told not to gather. We're told not to be close. We're told not to do that because if, two or more gather
Mm-hmm.
in my name and speak my name, the truth will be revealed along those lines, right? So I went to this thing called the Red Pill convention or something like that. And my friend and I snuck away. And then, we listened to all these experts and all these people on the scene. I'm not going to say the names, but, and I'm like, oh no, no solutions. No solutions. They're talking about the problem still. Like, well, this is bad. It's good. I counted on these people to have solutions. They have no solution. And the best they had was to gather in small community and encourage others to gather in small community because that will remind us and hold that truth for each other. And then if somebody, the police come knocking on your door, you're going to have five of your friends standing there saying, no, we're
Mm-hmm.
not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But he said if you gather in small communities and people of like mind continue to do that, then when it's time, the small communities can, rise and see that there's more out there. Just
That's
like the Underground Railroad for slavery, and just like, these people who are doing shelters for the sex trade, and,
mm-hmm.
to try and beat the systems, but in grassroots, because that's the way that Margaret Mead quote,
Yep.
that's the way it's already always been done.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where, for me, I feel like there has been a shift in my own, you know, perception, since August, because when in August, the third week we went to Edmonton for my mom's 75th birthday, which happened in April, but the party didn't happen because restrictions, lockdowns, whatever. And so as we were flying there, I was very sort of aware of, you know, the fact that this is probably the last time I'm going to fly for a while. And while we were there, or just before we went there, I could feel just this like boiling up in me of like something, you know, I need to do something. I don't want to apologize for my choices anymore. I don't want to sort of sit and be quiet or be evasive or whatever. I mean, anytime anyone has asked me, are you vaccinated, I've been truthful. But it wasn't something I necessarily, you know, advertised like so many people, like, hey, I just got the second shot. Like, great. So but when I came back, I wrote this post on the value of freedom, which got me in hot water with my spiritual center. And it went out to my community, my people on my mailing list who chose to be there. But some of them are from the spiritual center. But it really, for me, was about asking questions, just like, you know, what's going on, and how I don't even remember, what I even wrote in there, but it was more about asking questions and being open-minded, and sort of challenging, and just like, exploring, like, is what I believe, like, does that actually hold water for me? Does that actually, and every day, many times a day, I'm reevaluating and questioning and challenging, and just, like, how why are we doing this, to each other? Like, why are we treating people this way? Where's the love? Where's the compassion? And a lot of the questioning for me came from the science of mind teachings and learning how to think, not what to think, when I feel more and more and more like I'm being told what to think and how to behave and what choices to make, and that kind of thing. um I just lost it, but what was I gonna say?
The letter that you wrote and
The letter
everybody,
that
the
I, oh, right.
freedom.
And so what I was feeling was there were these small conversations, and I thought, you know what, these small hushed conversations, they need to be louder. We need to start bringing them together and coming together in a larger, more vocal, more profound, resonant voice. And I feel like, now it's a couple of months later, I feel like that is happening. I feel like, with all of these open letters, with all of these rallies, with all of these beautiful, amazing, I haven't even said it, but I'm getting goosebumps thinking of the first responders standing in front of legislative buildings silently, for an hour, just with their signs or whatever, not saying anything, just being there as a presence. Like, how profound is that? Like, how strong, how resilient, how powerful is that? It just, that silence speaks volumes. And so I feel like all of these tiny little, the grassroots, like, it's building into, a plain, a forest, like, whatever, however that metaphor would grow.
Hmm.
But I feel like that is what's happening. And so that's what I want to place my attention on, because that
Hmm.
also for me is very strengthening and very life
Yes.
affirming.
Yes.
um
It's
so
similar to faith, right? Because back in the old days when people were like, this is the only religion and you have to follow it, and people would be like, that's not my religion, and they would pray in their closet.
yeah.
It's very similar, and I think this is a part of the American human story. I always say American, but it's the human story of, what do you really, really, truly believe in your heart of hearts? Or say someone's born gay, and they're like, I'm gay, I'm gay, I'm gay, I know I'm gay, I know I'm gay, and then they finally come out and they're like, society didn't want me to be like, my family didn't want me to be like that, it's against the grain. And then they finally come out and they're like, okay, this is my truth. It's similar to that, right? We have to listen to what's inside of us saying, this is true, this is true, this is true. And
Mm-hmm.
just stick to that, because the more chaotic this, hurricane around us, the more we have to center in the I. And that's the exploration of, what is my truth? Do I really believe in that? My mom got COVID last year, and I was like, rah, rah, rah. And then she got COVID. I was like, like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Like, what do I really, really believe? And I reached out to a friend. And I'm like, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out. My mom's got COVID. Like, am I thinking right? Do I have enough evidence? And she's like, calm down. Who are you?
Yeah.
And then like in 5 minutes, I was laughing. I'm like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
And I went to all my naturopathic things and whatever, not vaccinated, and I go right into her home, and she's still, contagious or whatever. And within 4 days, she turned around, she was better, everything was
Yeah.
fine. And I was like, okay, I am proving it right here with my own blood, my own mother.
Mm-hmm.
Like, none of that. So I got myself into a situation where I proved it to
Yeah.
myself, fearful and all, and I just went in there, and I got on that airplane, and I'm like, no, I didn't even get on the airplane. I drove. I drove 12 miles because I said that she could die right now. Like, I don't know what's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll just going to be on my own vehicle because, say, the airlines, decide, like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
No, I want to be independent. So we have to be challenged. That's how we grow. To Glenn's point, when you make these children, disable them from developing by no challenge,
Hmm.
How are we going to grow? So when I think about the railroad and freeing the slaves, they risked their lives
Yep.
because they believed in freedom. And that's what we're talking about here is freedom.
Yeah.
Um, okay, it's hard answering or like jumping into this conversation because you're always like 10 minutes behind. Like when you want to make a point, and then you're listening, and then you're like, is my point valid anymore?
Valid.
Um, the back to the thing about Lasia's thing, for example, of we have to take action, do things, and
Well, I was saying for
small
me, like when I was
right.
talking for me. Yeah.
So the small groups thing, right? In that vein, um, in Ireland, like I'm kind of tied into the Irish and you know political scene and just what's happening there. So, the bloggers and the people on YouTube, whatever. And one of the things that showed up recently to help identify one another. So like coffee groups were starting up, right? And can I share my screen for a second, last? I just want to.
Sure. Hold on. Okay.
So can you see this thing?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so this was the symbol that was kind of decided upon, the Triskelion or Triskela. It appears in Spain and France and Italy and Wales, Ireland. It's the oldest known image recorded in Irish sort of culture. Like so, it's on the stones, like the standing stones and whatever. And it's a very simple image, right? And it's sort of one way that people were like they were doing their pendants, sort of wearing them, or they would like wear a T-shirt or something. But like, it's not a huge thing. It's just a simple element that you can sort of use to sort of identify that like I'm I'm open to just a conversation. I'm kind of let's stop sharing here. I'm open to meeting people, right? And I don't know how other people are doing it, but in Ireland, that's how they were doing it for a while. And then there's online versions too. But like the actual going and having a coffee or a tea or just walking your dog and meeting people in the park and just chatting, and some people would be still distancing and whatever because they're still not sure. And some people were just using it as an excuse to get hugs and whatever. Because some people, like, especially in the UK and Ireland, like, they were literally locked down for like a year plus, and they're starting to lose their sense of what's going on, right? What's real and what's important because they're just stuck watching like BBC and RTE and stuff. And it's just like this. So the small groups thing that you said was the one um, suggestion that came out of that red pill convention thing. Um, that's an example of that, right? Another one I think would possibly work on a more grand scale is an idea of just boycotting the so like let's say the ads that support the media, the companies that are all on board for, which is usually things like banks and obviously the pharmaceutical industry and stuff, but like where possible make it clear that you do not support any company or even like a non-profit like an NGO or a non-profit agency that supports this principle of division and separation. You know, not even into the medical aspect of it, right? Like the vaccine or not, right? Just if you believe that giving support, like if you believe this strongly enough that this is wrong to divide people and to have like a form of apartheid or segregation, then each of us has ways that we can tap into to say, I could probably give up that product. I could write to the CEO of that company. I could, of course, my representatives, my MP or my state legislator or whatever, and just say, look, this is not this is not okay. This is not who we are. This is not what the Constitution means. This is not what the Bill of Rights means. And in our case, because we have um, these silos within each province, uh, like most recently the Human Rights Commission in Ontario, and then they followed suit here in BC, essentially saying it is not an infraction of your human rights when the government is saying, you know, the respect these mandates. It's not, and to me that was like mind blowing. I just like, no, like if you're a pregnant woman, you know, if you have physical reasons, never mind moral reasons, if you have physical reasons to say these things are not okay for me, then of course it's also a possibility that my neighbor would be going through that. And even though I'm not going through it, then why is it okay overall to say that, yes, it's not an infraction of human rights, therefore you have to play ball here and be for the greater good? Because that's into that whole um, the, doing things for the greater good, or the group versus the individual. You know, this is what led in part to the First World War. Like the English tradition was the individual first. The German tradition was, and this was pre the Bolshevik Revolution. Um, it was about the collective good. You know, because that's the way people in those various parts of Germany were brought up to. You know, that's how they were socialized. You know, we have to look out for the group, and that's what kind of enabled the Nazi Germany thing, right? And that's obviously what enabled um, part of the Soviet Union stuff. You know, it's like tapping into that thing of, hey man, are you a team player or not? Like, do you want to be part of this group, or do you want to be the asshole on the side, like who's out for himself, like portray them as like, you know, the outsider? So, and I think that's, you know, we're Canada's more socialism friendly anyway. It has been for decades. Um, and I always portray myself as being left wing and socialist in nature for many issues. But to me, the left and right thing, it just doesn't matter anymore. My new paradigm, I think, is more like inside or outside.
Mm.
Are you doing the internal locus of control thing or the
Mhm.
external? Do you see things from like outside affecting you primarily, or do you like close your eyes, take a breath, and figure out like my I amness first? Because if you're not doing that, then whatever you do beyond that point, you're gonna be in trouble and you won't be able to control it. You're in chaos, right?
Mhm.
You're not in that swirl of chaos and order. You're just in chaos, I think.
Mhm. I love those points. Just even in marketing, right? The manipulation of triggering our animal nature, because that's what this whole group thing is, animal nature. When you're a herd, gazelles, there's safety in numbers. So if one gazelle's like, "Oh, I want to eat those berries over there," that's dangerous for that one gazelle to go out on their own because they're leaving the security, and you're not going to know how to behave when you're out there by yourself, and you're going to trigger the lion's attention, and then the lion's going to not only take you for lunch, they're going to notice us.
Mm.
So you're putting us in danger and you're putting yourself in danger. And then if other gazelles see you going out there, they're going to want to go too. So you're a troublemaker just by even glancing out like what's outside of the tribe. But, people like us, we're like, I don't know, I'm doing the tribe thing. See y'all later. Like, see ya. And even a friend in Brazil, not Brazil, Berlin, she said, she was an American living over there, and she says, we have so little crime. And I said, how can that be? I mean, that's like kind of a rougher city. And she said, because everybody knows that anything that we do affects the whole community.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's a higher consciousness. But then, Glenn, when I'm hearing you, I'm like, oh,
There's
that's
a
a
dark there's a
control.
dark side to that as well,
Yeah,
right? That's what I'm
yeah, that's
saying.
a
Yeah.
control technique.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I have a question that like as I'm listening, it's just like I really just want to listen to you guys and not interject in the conversation because as soon as I do, I'm like, ah, thoughts lost. Um, I'm thinking of fear and sort of the, as Ursula was talking about the lone gazelle that goes to explore and eat the berries, and then that triggers, the lion's attention, which then, triggers the awareness of like the rest of the buffet that is, available. Is it really then just boiling down to fear of survival? Like, is that what it is? Like when people are, because I was really thinking about this and I thought this might be what my talk would end up being when I spoke at CSL a couple of months ago, but it went in a different direction. But I really started thinking about what are people so afraid of? Like, is it that you're going to get sick? Well, if you get sick, chances are that you will get through it. And if you get through it, that actually you might even have some immunity towards getting it, again, kind of thing. So, okay, is it that you'll get sick and you'll die? I mean, eventually we all die at some point. At least that's sort of, the notion that a lot of us subscribe to at this point. Dr. James notwithstanding, who's gonna, just keep going. Um, but what is the fear? Is it because if we know we're going to die at some point, is it that we're dying too soon? Is it that we're not dying under our own, like the way that we would want to control kind of thing? Is it that we haven't lived the life that we are meant to live? Is it that we haven't answered the call or like, lived our hero's journey? And time is like, being ripped from underneath us. Like, what is it that people are afraid of? And it kind of then ties into what Glenn was just talking about, not so much left and right, but in and out, and that, external versus internal locus of control. Are you then allowing yourself to be, manipulated and swayed and impacted by what's going on around you, which isn't even going on around you, it's all coming from like within? Or are you going to tune into, hey, even though all of this is going on around me, I can still choose something different. I can choose to
Yeah.
like bulldoze my way through it, feeling all the feelings that are mine to feel, experiencing all of the crappy, cruddy, yucky, icky, gross, boily, things that are mine to experience, knowing that as I'm doing so, I'm increasing my chances of coming out, up, forwards, spiraling, whatever, to a higher, more amazing, more, expressive place because I'm doing it based on, who I am inside rather than, circumstances around me. Like is like that's what's going through my head. That's what
That's
I'm thinking.
beautiful. That's beautiful. No, that is so on point. That is so on point.
Mm, the end. No.
I
When truth is spoken, silence follows.
um wow. Yeah. As you started asking the question last, I think for me, um, the what has been demonstrated in the last, well, let's say last year since the injection of injections into our reality, um, it has been clear to me that most people who are getting it, again, from the UK and Ireland perspective primarily, are doing it so that they can travel and they can engage in activities like go to the bar, the club, gym, whatever, rather than to protect their health, right? So that is to me more a symptom of I don't want to be ostracized. I don't want to be the one who stands out. And it's like that fear of public speaking thing. It's like I don't want to be the one that everyone's laughing at or is like looking at with this weird like what is he doing or she what she who what? Like you want to be comfortable within your tribe and with people you don't know. There's a different level of, you know, imagine being in an airport and being the one making the scene because of something that you do or that you don't have the right paperwork with you and there's a lineup behind you and everyone's like, come on, you know, like you don't want to be that person, you know, and I think that's where this primal level of discomfort is you know is being exploited and we're letting it happen where we're just walking into that role. We're playing that role of being the one who just doesn't get it. You know, the 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 character in the story where you just like, I get why this person has to be in this story to kind of mess things up, you know, but it's annoying to be in the presence of this character in this, even a sitcom. It's like, oh, I just don't like this, you know. You don't want to be that person. And that's what's being exploited of that, you know, that thing of like, look, guys, everyone up lined up over here, like the 90% of the, you know, fill in the blanks, you know, care providers or whatever, or firefighters, you know, they're all okay with it. Well, yeah, but is it is it like truly 100% start and then we have 90% saying, yep, we did it, 10% don't be a jerk, come and join us? Or is it that we've taken 40% of that 100% out because they just dropped off because they couldn't deal with this weird choice, and now the 60% of that are left, they're like, okay, I panic, I got to do this because we're going on vacation, or my kid, you know, I can't do this. um, that's what we're kind of, I think, dealing with is fudging the numbers on like the columns on the spreadsheet. It's like, and more people are becoming aware of it, but it's this thing of like, what do you do with that, you know? And I think we're comfortable talking about options and being in the consciousness of starting from the moment and creating rather than um,
Reacting.
being reaction mode. But for so many people, even where they're going to, and I don't mean this to sound um, negative in itself, but like to rely on, say, your religious practice or whatever as a crutch or a coping mechanism, it still isn't necessarily going to help because you're still stuck in that I am a victim consciousness,
Mhm.
and something needs to break you out of it, and maybe it's not going to happen this time. I don't know, you know. So
A lot of good points. Yeah. And look, they're saying, I want to go on my trip. I want to go. You're choosing anti-freedom so you can have freedom.
yeah,
And there's one thing, and I never seem to remember it, but it's like they take away, they create the chaos, they create the problem, you give up your rights, and then they give you a solution.
yeah,
Like that's an old tactic as well
yeah,
against whoever. So the we see the problem and we see our rights being taken away, and then we say like, oh well, if you do this shot then you can have this toy,
yeah,
you can play this game, you can
yeah.
see your friends, you can,
You you
we've
can
worked.
live back in 2019 again.
Hmm.
Like you if you do all these things, we'll allow you to have the freedoms you had 2 years ago that you didn't think were an issue.
That we took away, we
Yeah,
take them away, you compromise, and
yeah,
then we'll give
yeah.
them
It's
back to you.
I think it's part of the Hegelian dialectic thing of like problem, reaction, solution. Like we create the problem, you are clearly going to react to that problem because it's so pervasively spread in the media or whatever, or among your churches or whatever. And but okay, we've got this solution, you know. Never mind that had we done absolutely nothing 2 years ago, well, March of 2020, if we had done nothing, we'd still be way ahead of the game. Completely. We'd be like, not even like Sweden. We'd be beyond that. We'd be, everything's hunky dory. What are you talking about? You know, our kids are not told not to talk to each other during lunch at class and school. Like if I'd said that to myself 2 years ago, elementary school kids are not going to be able to talk to each other. What are you talking about? Like, you're in, it's a Robert Heinlein story or something. It can't be real. What are you talking about? But sorry. See, you got me going again. Why did I do that?
Okay. Listen, I really, because Ursula, this conversation is great, and I know it could keep going, but I really would like to shift the trajectory a bit because Ursula, I mean, one of the things that I just find so fascinating is all of these different types of healings that you are and energy work that you are involved in. And having had one session so far with you, and what I experienced in that session was just so amazing, so neat. Like even like everything, like I still think of like the unzipping of the various feelings or whatever sort of thing, and then okay, now your mom, she can unzip hers too, and then the bucket and throwing things out. um but I don't even know how to sort of like what question to ask so that you can kind of like just start talking about stuff. But could you start talking about some of the work that you do, because it is just so fascinating, intriguing, and I think maybe something that our listeners aren't necessarily used to or haven't heard us talk about on the show before, because you've never been on the show before. So is there something that you'd like to sort of dip
Yeah,
in?
I can just give you ideas of what I do. So I have my foundation is metaphysics. So what is metaphysics? Boil it down to an angry person lives in an angry world, a peaceful person lives in a peaceful world, and their next door neighbors. So that is how we see the world and experience the world through the lenses that we have on. Those lenses come from our culture, our community, what we've been taught, our religion, our events in our life and experiences, and the conclusions that we hold true. So if we're trying to do something new, get in a relationship, get out of a relationship, start a new job, have a kid, like whatever, and we can't seem to get it done, it's because we're anchored back into our programs.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't will our way out of it, because will is the conscious mind, and what goes on in the subconscious is all the programming from all of those things. So we have to go into the subconscious to deal and make the changes, because that's our hard drive. And, trying to do word work in an Excel, it's not easy to do. Or to try to do Excel and Word, like it's just too complicated. So you can, when we go into the subconscious, the work I do is called Internal Family Systems, created by Dick Schwartz. And the model is the premise of our truest self, the part of us that has no preference, no agenda, no ego. It's just our clear, clean, silent part of ourselves. And then all these other parts that were brought through our ego. So a belief system, a fearful part, different emotions that always take over, addictions, abuses. All of that is ego-based. And the ego base is trying to survive. They're afraid of something, or there's hurt parts buried deep, deep inside. So we'll have a manager part trying to control everything, or we'll have this avoider part trying to, distract us from the whole nonsense. So we can go into the subconscious, go back to those times and places, and unlock that belief system and conclusion that we've made. I'm not good enough. I'm too small. I should keep my mouth shut. I'm subordinate. I'll never make it in anything. All these negative things that we naturally say, normally say to ourselves, and don't realize how they're just this program that's already been in there, based on like a conclusion that we made when we were 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a 3 year old running our lives based on the conclusions that were made, but they're also family legacy, right? Because our parents treated us that way because that's the way they were treated, so on and so forth. So we're really trying to buck the system by being the first one in our generation and our first one in our family lineage to say, I'm not doing that anymore. We're leaving the tribe mentality and saying, I'm not going to run addiction, or I'm not going to stay in this unhealthy relationship, or I'm not going to whatever. So that's a big part of what I do, the one-on-one sessions. And it's amazing because we can even go back in time and space and talk to the different ancestors and find out the original story that caused that behavior. And it's amazing. So that's that piece. The pranic healing is Master Choa Kaksui's work, and he was a chemical engineer. So there's nothing woo-woo about engineers if you've ever met any.
Mm-hmm.
He was born sickly. He said, look, there's got to be a way to do this. The medical industry is not getting it. There must be a natural answer. And he studied everything, religions, texts, ancient things, long forgotten. He just pulled it all up, and then he would do prayer, meditation, and get all the downloads. And as a scientist, he was a chemical engineer, so he would research everything, do experiments on himself, like they'd blow up. He's like, oh, okay, don't do that, okay. And then all of this, thousands of case studies, and he put together something that's safe and effective, and anybody can do it. And it fits very streamlined into our metaphysical understanding, because our creative process is energy. Everything's energy.
Mm-hmm.
So if everything's energy, a sickness can be, reorganized to not be sick anymore. Our thoughts and our feelings, the stress components, that stress is energy. We all know that. No one says it, but it's true. So if you can reduce the stress, you can increase the health, the vitality, the awareness, the ability to choose, strength, all of that. And then the metaphysics background, minister with that. So I have an understanding that, everything is really vibration. And if you can meet the vibration where it's at and apply love to it, it can't maintain that form, that structure, that belief, and it will vibrate out. So those are three ways that I help people and move through life, and do my own consciousness study and just participate in this experience.
What what
Oh,
was the
okay, go ahead,
name?
Glenn.
What was the name of the pranic healing guy again? Sorry.
Master Choa, Choa, middle name Kok, Kok, last name Sui, Sui.
Okay.
Amazing stuff, amazing stuff. And Master Co is online, on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and he does meditations 3 days a week, and you can learn a lot of that teaching through here. It's very in alignment with metaphysics. Really, it's about energy, it's about love, it's about forgiveness, practical stuff. And I'm a very practical person. I mean, I know I can be so outside the box in my quantum, realities. I feel like I'm multidimensional, and I'm not, like today. I was picking this shirt, and I looked at my, after a shower, and I looked at my wardrobe, and one of the sweaters had stripes on it, and the whole shirt was vibrating. And I'm like, wow, wowee, And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? You're like, is it steamy in my room? Like my logical mind went
Yeah.
like click, 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 click.
Yeah.
And I'm like, none of the other clothes are vibrating. It's just these stripes. And I'm like, okay, so I'm looking through the veil of reality. That shirt knows it's not solid. All the others think they're solid, but that shirt doesn't think it's solid. And I was just tripping out. And I said, now see, this is the world I get to live in.
Yeah.
Can't share that with everybody, but
My my liminal wardrobe. It's just like it's on the precipice of something. Okay.
Uh,
Wow.
Okay, well, okay, so here's my question. Um, when sort of do you feel like you've always been on, some kind of journey of discovery and just like kind of, tuning into who you really are and or have you sort of discovered stuff along the way that is like woken up parts in you? Do you feel like some of the stuff that you've learned are actual like skills that, anybody could, learn? I mean, I kind of don't want to get into the like, your like the idea of how in science of mind we talk about Jesus, being the example, not the exception, that we all can, rise to the occasion kind of thing. Is the stuff that you do, the because some of it just sounds so not foreign, just like that's just not me. Even when other people talk about hearing the still small voice, I'm like, I don't hear a voice. I will get feelings, I will get, sort of like sparks of inspiration in different ways that I can't necessarily even articulate. But I don't hear a little voice in my head. I never have.
Right.
I
No,
don't
but
often
you're
get
getting
vision.
it. No, no, you're getting it.
Yeah.
We're all, I say we're all snowflakes,
Yeah.
right? So each one is designed differently. We have five senses external, but we also have five senses internal.
Mhm.
So you're more clairsentient where you get they'll call it a hit, right? You get
Yeah.
a hit and then you'll be like, oh, or there's a cognos, cognition where you just get this download and you have this knowingness.
Yeah.
Someone, well, how do you know? And you're like, I don't know, I just know.
Yeah.
And if you have that connection of that trust, that's the other ticket. So that's, I think, in our conclusion of this conversation we've had, it comes down to trust. So if we know we can't trust outward, where can we trust inward? So my life, when I was a kid, I was different. And I would speak in a way that was, I would speak from the quantum world. And my dad, who was super rah, 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 he's like, girl, your mouth and you and blood, keep that shut. And, you're not making any sense. And I'd look at him and I'd be like, I'm making perfect sense. You just don't understand me.
Yeah.
So I already knew, that my knowingness was true
Yeah.
and that I was told to shut it down.
Hmm.
So I just kind of lived inside, and that actually pushed me more inside, where I was like, that's fine. I'm good here. Like, I don't know what's going on out there, but I know what's going on in here. And so, I just kind of moved through life that way. And then tried to be normal, right? Get normal jobs and do normal things. But even that blew up. We had a big real estate crash here. I got married. I lived on an island for 10 years. That was more inside world.
That's a whole
And
other
then,
podcast right
oh
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so this isolation thing that Glenn was talking about, how it's unhealthy. Yeah, that's dangerous. It's dangerous because there's a thing on our CDC, Centers of Control Disease website about isolation, and it's very revealing. And that's not what's being spoken about these days, and that's terrible because, it's really a terrible problem. So to have the strength, the inner strength to make it through those 10 years and not self-destruct. And I had to crawl out of that marriage and everything, but that's very, very challenging. That's a challenging thing to be isolated. It's like solitary confinement. So you learn to know yourself, and then all the spiritual work I did before and after. But then I would go through mostly after, as far as looking at who my soul really is.
Yeah.
I did a lot of past life regressions, and it's like nun, monk, and I'm like, of course, okay, yeah, this one, it's like so many. It's part of who I am,
Yeah.
living in that spirit. And even the healing path is very specific, because if you look at all the spiritual ways of being, healing is very niche. And so I've always been a healer because I've gone through past life things where I've healed and gotten killed because I was a healer. I've gotten thrown out of the tribe because I was different and I was scaring people and freaking people out. So my soul's journey has always been in this vibration, and I just now have acquired tools and then even brought other things forward that I used to know, and now I'm safe enough and strong enough to wake those elements up. So there's a vast uh, ability inside of me to serve at whatever capacity. So it's fun and it's easy now. I'm not afraid of death. Like you said, what are you afraid of? Like if it's time to go home now, I'll be like, I don't even need a bag. I don't need to say goodbye to anybody. Take me now, you know? How do I get on? Where's it time to go? I'm looking forward to my death experience because I
Yeah.
know it's just going to be another transition.
Hmm.
So in a way, I walk through life very curious and in awe, because what if we could come back? You know, I'm watching my friend die in front of my eyes, and I've done a lot of hospice work, a couple years of hospice work, talking to dying people, and that was my best spiritual education because it was, that's real, that's grounded, it's honest. It's not a belief system. It's like in your face conversations, and how precious, the lessons of it all is how precious is this moment that we're sharing right here, and how is it real, because we're not here impressing anybody. We're just having heart to heart conversations and talking about what's up right now in this exact moment. So that's the most alive thing. And to me, I think this is an opportunity for us to have heaven on earth, and we just don't see it that way. But over the years, I see it that way. Because ask a kid, what would heaven be like? Oh, I get to play all day. I get to hang out with my friends. I get to eat food I like. I sleep well, and, everything's magical. I'm like, oh, well, we're creating that.
Yeah.
So even in the chaos, my little eye of the storm, I'm experiencing heaven on earth. I'm enjoying my life. I'm being fully present. I don't have a lot of chitter chatter going on up there. I've Somebody said, "Oh, I like how you control your mind," and I laughed. I'm like, "There's no control. There's no control. My brain and all my parts of me trust me. I've earned trust, so everybody can shut down and be quiet and like be like, not shut down, but they don't have to be all like, I need your attention. I'm freaking out. I'm like, okay, what's up for you? Okay, well, stop watching those videos. Okay, like, okay, what's going on with you? Okay, all right, let's take a walk. So I can be with myself and be with my parts, and be okay with, what is.
I have 5 pages of notes because I write notes through all our podcasts. But what you just said, my brain and all parts of me trust me, like that's huge, huge. And I know Glenn really, really likes the word trust. That's an important one for him. But this idea, like I'm gonna print that out, write that out, whatever, and I'm gonna look at that a lot because like I have tears coming right now because this is just it's beautiful. My brain and all parts of me trust me. Like there's no fear there, there's no questioning, there's just that curiosity and wonder that you were talking about before, and just the whole like I don't even need a bag, where do I go kind of thing. Just to have that kind of all encompassing, pure, unadulterated trust in yourself. I haven't heard anyone articulate it that way before. It hasn't landed in the way it just landed for me before. So thank you. And for those of you, who are only listening, I'm crying. Um,
And I put together a class called Self Mastery from the Inside Out, and that's the whole foundation of it. Is inner resourcing and getting a relationship with ourselves that we can depend on.
wow. And is that okay? So what is that? Is that a several weeks long? Is it a
It's a
group,
whole year.
a
It's a whole
whole,
year, twice a month,
and
hour and, hour and a half each, online, in person.
Can you jump in at any time, or does it start in a certain
No, you
time
can
period?
jump in. We
Okay.
just we had our second class.
Great.
wow. Well, that's an enticing thing to consider there. Okay. Oh, that's neat. All right.
Do
That
you
just
take
totally,
Bitcoin? Sorry. That's a joke between Lassie and I, but yes.
we just delved into the world of cryptocurrency last night. Okay. I could keep going, but it is coming on 2 hours, and I know there's a day ahead, for all of us. And actually, like, you're already 3 hours further into your day than we are, right? Because you're in Atlanta. So, oh, thank you so much. I'm
I
not
had
quite
so
done
much
yet,
fun.
but thank you.
I had so much
Um,
fun. Glenn, it was a pleasure meeting you. Now I know why Lassia loves you so much. You guys are so unique to each other and very complimentary, and it's beautiful to watch you guys interact and see your thoughts and your react. It's just like, I'm like, wow, that's a cool couple. So thank you so much for allowing me to share
Thank
time
you.
with you and be on this show. It was worth the wait, that's for sure. Because I'm like
Yeah.
2 hours in the middle of my Saturday, like, this better be good. And I'm like, yeah, it's totally good. It was awesome.
Right on. Okay, well, like I said, it's not over yet. We're like a few minutes away, but there's another segment that we're about to go into, the super rapid fire question round,
Okay.
which is just a minute where Glenn's going to bombard you with questions that we'd just love for
Okay.
you to answer off the top of your head.
Okay.
Just a fun way to get to know Ursula Lentini just a little bit more.
All right.
And then at the end of it, we will let you know what you've won. And of course, one is in air quotation marks. So Honey Bunch, just let me know when you are ready. Wait, hold on. Are you ready?
Yeah.
And set, go.
Ursula, do you sing in the car?
No.
Okay, how many tattoos do you have?
0.
Okay, which do you prefer? Local food or organic food?
Organic.
Funny friends or honest friends?
Oh, honest.
Magic wand or a time machine?
Magic wand.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Yoga or walking?
Walking.
Jigsaw or crossword puzzle?
Jigsaw.
Okay, asking for help or going it alone?
I go it alone.
Okay, piano or guitar?
Um, Listening guitar.
Okay, typing or handwriting?
Typing.
Okay, solitude or dinner parties?
Dinner parties.
Ding, 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 ding. Okay,
Okay.
Glenn, let Ursula know what she's won.
Okay, I'm going to give you a gift from the wisdom of the past from 1879. Chief Joseph said, "Let me be a free man, free to travel, free to stop, free to work, free to trade where I choose, free to choose my own teachers, free to follow the religion of my fathers, free to talk, think, and act for myself."
Isn't that perfect? It's perfect. It's perfect for our whole conversation. It's
Thank you,
perfect
Chief
for
Joseph.
it's perfect on heaven on earth. Like, that's it.
Yep, yep, I know.
Really, that's the sum of our entire conversation is freedom and freedom of choice. Wow.
And you chose that before we even had the conversation.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, of course. There's no time. Time doesn't exist. Yeah.
Okay, well, Ursula, before we go, if someone would like to find out more about you, the work that you do, even this self-mastery from the inside out, where would they go?
There's my website, and the self mastery class isn't even in my website. I can help you cure cancer, but like the technology piece is still a little.
Okay.
My email is Ursula at Ursula Lentini, no dots on all of that stuff. Ursula Lentini at gmail.com. My website, ursulalentini.com. Facebook, Ursula Lentini. I try to make it really easy to reach out. Don't friend me on Facebook. Just give me a message. Like, go straight to the message and say, hey, I heard the podcast. I want more information. Just reach out. I'm available.
Okay, fantastic. We will have a slide up for those who are watching. There will be an added visual. Ursula, thank you so much. It totally was worth the wait. I am so grateful that you gave us 2 hours of your Saturday mid-morning into early afternoon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm so excited that you and Glenn finally got a chance to meet, because I've talked about you and I've talked about you, and now you guys have talked to each other, which is fantastic. And just thank you, Honey Bunch, for co-steering the show as always. And thank you to everyone who tuned in to this episode of Who Do You Think You Are with our super special guest, Ursula Lentine. Everything that we talked about, we are so grateful for your support, for your engagement, whether you listened, watched, however it is that you're vibing with us. We are so, so, so grateful for you. So thank you for tuning in
I have
today.
one more thing I forgot to say.
Yeah.
I have a Tuesday meditation every single week, and that's also online, the Twin Hearts meditation.
Okay.
What time? You're in the East Coast, right?
East Coast. That's Eastern Standard Time.
Is that on the website, or is there somewhere else that they?
That is on the website.
Okay. All right. Okay. We'll include that too.
Okay.
So thank you for that extra stuff. And thank you to everyone who stuck through to the end of this podcast, because you just got that information. Just thank you, everybody. We had a blast. We will be back in a couple of weeks with a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bless you both. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye. This has been an episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lesia Cahoot, and I have been your host. My co-host has been Glenn Sheridan. We'd like to thank the following for helping make this podcast a reality. Today's special guest, Reverend Ursula Lentine. Music, Vasco Lorenco copyright, 123rf.com. Background illustration, Sakma Sterke copyright, 123rf.com. For more information on this podcast and our Lesia Cahoot Soul Excavator, please visit www.lesiacahoot.com. If you like what you've heard, please like, subscribe, and let us know by leaving a comment. Thanks for tuning in to Who Do You Think You Are?